This is the story of Pollo, the most underrated player in the world of Fortnite. But he wasn't always this good, so let's take a trip back and see how he rose to fame. He started playing Fortnite competitive in Chapter 1 Season 10, where he would queue into his first ever tournament, the Contender Division Cup, on February 20th, 2019. With all this newfound practice though, Pollo was heading into the World Cup, where he would sadly fail to make his first earnings. It would soon become far more prevalent that Pollo was just your average player trying to go pro at Fortnite, but this did not discourage him. He kept trying as hard as he could, and he was starting to see some success. He did manage in this time to get a couple top 100 placements, but the average placement around this time for Pollo was in the thousands, which needed to change if he wanted to go pro. Even despite these bad placements, Pollo loved Fortnite and was dedicated to improving. Pollo was really resilient though, and he knew that if he believed in himself, he would be able to achieve the pro status. Due to this, he kept pushing through these harder times and continuing improving every week. There wasn't much visible improvement in Pollo's tournament placements, but he knew that his big break was right around the corner, coming with solo FNCS. If he could do well enough in this, he'd be able to secure far better teammates in the future and maybe even bag himself out a couple $100. With all of this on the line, Pollo booted up his PC and jumped into the first qualifier of solo FNCS. It didn't go to plan though. Pollo ended up placing in 1,500th. This was pretty demotivating, but he knew if he locked in and grinded for the next week, he could make something happen and keep his dreams alive. With absolutely everything on the line, Pollo did it. He managed to place 77th and then went on and improved even more, getting himself the 11th place in the third qualifier for the solo FNCS, gaining himself about 5,000 PR. It wasn't over yet though. Pollo knew that if he wanted to qualify to his first FNCS Grand Finals, he would have to play well in the final qualifier, and that's what he did. He had done it. He managed to qualify to his first ever FNCS Finals and got a pretty decent finish, placing 23rd and bagging himself an additional $200. But he had a chance to go even further. Because of his consistency throughout the qualifiers, he had managed to earn himself a shot at FNCS Heats, which is known now as semi-finals. If he wanted to make his first ever Grand Finals, he would have to place top 25 in his heat. With his newfound confidence on his side, he managed to place 5th in his heat, qualifying him to his first ever FNCS Grand Finals. Sadly though, in Grand Finals, he was not able to pull off the placement he wanted, and managed to get himself 53rd, which made him an extra $400. Taking a step back though, this was actually a great placement for him. He had gone from not being able to earn to making $1,000 and his first FNCS Grand Finals in a singular season. The grinding had finally paid off, and we would hopefully be seeing Pollo on the leaderboard soon. As we talked about earlier, these placements allowed him to get some even better teammates for trios, which was announced for the rest of Chapter 2. In his search for the best trio he could possibly get, he found two players called Amped and Puppets. This team did play pretty well. They managed to make quite a lot of top 100s, but sadly were not able to ever crack the top 10. Sadly, they still were not able to make it happen when it mattered most in FNCS heats, meaning they failed to qualify for their first Grand Finals together. This wasn't too bad, but for Pollo, I imagine it would have felt really demotivating. This was their first season together though, so they decided to give it another chance for one last season. This decision probably did pay off for them. Pollo and his teammates managed to make $400 off Frosty Frenzy, but it was time for FNCS and to see what this trio could do. It would all come crashing down though, as they would fail in Chapter 2 Season 5 to even make heats. Pollo was super demotivated at this point and was probably even contemplating if his career in Fortnite was still worth pursuing. But this is Pollo, and we know he's one of the most resilient players in Fortnite, so he kept going. This downward trend did continue for Pollo though, and he wasn't really able to make some insane placements. He did, however, manage to get himself a 6th in the Solo Cash Cup and also an 11th in the same tournament. Although he was in a bit of a slump, Pollo did manage to make himself 2 pretty good placements. He managed to get himself a 6th and an 11th in the Solo Cash Cups. These together netted him an extra $450. In the last season of Chapter 2, the Grand Royale was right around the corner, and he knew if he wanted to capitalise on the huge prize pool, he was going to need some really, really good teammates. So he decided to team up with some people called Ghouls and Levi. This team together were able to make it to Grand Finals, but sadly they were only able to place 30th. Although this probably wasn't the placement he was looking for, he had managed to do it. He had qualified his 2nd Grand Finals, meaning he was going to be able to get some even better teammates going forward. With the announcement of duos for the entirety of Chapter 3 and 2 FNCS Grand Finals under his belt, he would end up teaming up with a player called Caesar. This team had pretty good vibes and were actually able to play pretty well together. Together they made Grand Finals and were able to play 18th, which definitely would have made Pollo a lot happier after not being able to qualify Grands and then qualifying 2 in a row. This was by far his best placement up until then, and this made him over $1,000. As we know though, Pollo was extremely perseverant and also resilient, and he thought to himself that this placement wasn't good enough. And he knew that he was capable of so much more. Due to this and his drive for even better placements, he decided to drop Caesar. In replacement of Caesar, he found Zio, and they actually placed fairly well together. And they did it again. Pollo had managed to make another Grand Finals, and I'm sure he was pretty happy with his career by now. Pollo wasn't able to live up to his expectations though. Sadly, they were only able to place 35th, and Pollo knew again that he was capable of so much more. Luckily for him though, he knew that him and Zio had a lot of potential together, so he decided to stick. Over the course of the season, they improved a ton together and built a lot of needed chemistry for Grand Finals. With all of this practice, they managed to make it to Grand Finals and placed 15th, netting Pollo an extra $1,500. He wasn't happy with this though. He knew that he could get so much further and decided to play with a new player, this time a player called Defiable. At the time, Defiable was a veteran Fortnite competitive player and had some pretty good accolades to his name. Even with both of them finding amazing individual success, they weren't able to play too well together and would end up struggling in the qualifying week. They were never really able to hold onto a great placement, and so when Grand Finals came around, they were basically at the bottom of everyone's radar and predictions. This is when they would shock the world though. They ended up placing 2nd in their first Grand Finals together. After this though, arguably the biggest change in Fortnite history occurred. This was the merging of NA East and NA West servers to create a combined NA Central. This singular change changed so many players' careers and absolutely ruined some. And his chances did not look good, as an NA West player moving over to the combined region of NA Central. This was going to be a very hard change with him, especially coming up against more experienced and practiced other players. By now in the video, we know that Pollo is one of the most resilient players in the world, and he was not going to let this stop him. But with his placement so far, he was able to catch the attention of Sphinx, a pretty well-known player and established player at the time. Together, they were going to try and tackle the huge region of NA Central and see if they could make a bang in Pollo's first combined FNCS Grand Finals. Although no one really knew him too well at the time and had him at the top of their predictions, they were able to do very, very well. On his first grand finals on the combined regions, he was able to place third with Sphinx. This was an amazing placement, and he had proved to everyone that he could play well, not just on his home region, but all regions. This insane placement managed to net him $34,000. It was because of this insane placement they decided to play together one more time to try their shot at the FNCS Global Championships. And they managed to do just that. They came 5th, and with these two combined placements, they were able to qualify themselves to the FNCS Global Championship at the end of the year. This was especially impressive since he had come from NA West 2 seasons earlier and had finally managed to prove himself and put his name out there on the map. After playing extremely well together that chapter, they decided they were going to run it back, but this would all come crumbling down when a certain player messaged Pollo. This player, as I assume you all know by now, was Peterbot. Peterbot at the time was one of the most notorious players on his region of NA. He was super good at fighting, and many could argue that at the time he was the best fighter on NA. Pollo knew that he could not just let his biggest opportunity in all of his career go to waste. So, of course, he gladly accepted, and they decided to play the entire season together. They decided to play their first 2 tournaments together, those being the OG skirmishes, and they actually managed to win both of them. This would be just a sneak peek at the amount of dominance that Peter Pollo would have coming up. As Chapter 5 kicked off with a bang, so did a lot of tournaments, and they actually did pretty well, managed to win a full week of Joe Cash Cups. But this was merely just the warm-up for their grand finals performance. In their first grand finals together, they managed to place second, earning themselves $45,000 each. Pollo took a step back and looked at how far he had come. He started as a small player who could barely make a grand finals or even earnings and going to one of the biggest names on the region. So, together, they locked in and absolutely grinded their hearts out. This grinding managed to make them into probably the best fighters on NA. Chapter 5 Season 2 kicked off with a bang and a bunch of tournaments, as so did Season 1, but this time there was something different. A POI called Grim Gate, and I think you all know how this one went. At the start, no one really knew how good Grim Gate was, and Peterbot and Pollo were really the first ones to work out how insane the medallion and loot from this place was. Because of this, they obviously claimed Grim Gates to themselves. As people started to work out what was going on and what the sort of season Peterbot and Pollo would have, they tried contesting them, but nothing would work, because we know that Peterbot and Pollo were the best fighters on the region. With this spot safely claimed just to themselves, they were able to win every single Joe Cash Cup that season. This is just absolutely insane. This would be a pretty good foresight into what would happen in their grand finals performance. Pollo knew that this was his best ever chance to win his first grand finals. As we all know by now, they managed to win this FNCS, and by over 350 points, amassing a total score of over 1,000 points, both of which have never been done before in a Fortnite grand finals lobby, so this was absolutely insane. Pollo knew that even after this win, his Fortnite competitive journey was not over yet, and he was hungry for another championship. As the new season rolled around, they decided to start landing at Redline Rig, easily the best POI on the map. From here on out, they would play their games out as usual, winning themselves a Joy Cash Cup and just playing overall insane. Because they hadn't won every single tournament, they had fallen off everyone's radar by just a little bit. They knew that they had to remind everyone that they were the kings of NA and that they were going to absolutely dominate in this grand finals. And I think we all know by now, and it's pretty obvious at this point, that Pollo and Peterbot had just won their second FNCS. Well, for Pollo at least. Peterbot had already won one before their dominance and was sitting on 3 at the moment. There was one last tournament that Pollo could play in to crown himself one of the best Fortnite players of all time, and obviously this was the FNCS Global Championship. So they trained harder than ever, And as you can see, a trend is starting to form. And obviously, they claim the best POI on the map, the Raft. The Raft was absolutely insane, not just finding refreshes through its medal, but it also had a very, very good AR that was going to be proved to be extremely OP in the upcoming FNCS Global Championship. There was only one thing left to do though, and that was to fly out to the FNCS Global Championship and see if they could prove themselves as one of the best duos of all time, and definitely the best ones of Chapter 5. But there was no time to waste. They dropped in at the Raft and managed to get uncontested. This was amazing for them because they knew if they were uncontested, they were going to do extremely well. And that's exactly what they did. They dominated at day 1, and on day 2, they managed to hold up their lead. Thomas HD and Queasy did get close, however, but Peterbot and Pollo were just too good, and in the end, Peterbot managed to have 2 insane solo clutches to win them the title of the best duo of Chapter 5, and if not all time. But one other thing happened at the Global Championship, and that was the announcements of trios for 2025. But something would go very, very wrong super soon. As quite a couple of you will know by now, Peterbot ended up dropping Pollo after one of the most, if not the most, dominant performances in Fortnite history. In trios, they were going to play Peterbot, Pollo, and Cold, and this was an insanely strong comp. However, Peterbot made a decision, one that would greatly impact Pollo. This was to drop Pollo and instead take Booger. Booger was known as a really good typer, and that's the main reason that Peterbot took him over Pollo. And I'm not just the only one that wants to see Pollo dethrone Peterbot and claim the title. Pollo, come on. If you are watching this, you need to win to prove Peterbot wrong and take your revenge. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This video took a long time to make, so if you have enjoyed, please end up subscribing and also commenting and liking. Please also tell me down below if you think that Peterbot dropping Pollo for Booger was actually a good idea or not. Now guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.